Hey guys, welcome back to day 10 of gravitation. I'm sorry I have to do it a recording video because my timings are a little messed up today. So let's just go with the recording video for today. In the last class, in the last video, we were talking about satellites, their properties, the orbital speed, the time period of a satellite, the energies of a satellite. Let me just rewind all the things that we just discussed about satellites in the last class. I talked about the orbital speed, which was around this, I guess. Yeah, where this is the orbital's radius. I'm glad I remember this value. And then we've talked about the time period of a satellites in the orbit. Can I remember that? 4 pi square gm r cube, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, we've already also come up with this statement saying the square of a time period is nothing proportional to cube of the radius of the orbit. We've already discussed this, and then we talked about potential energy, kinetic energy, and total energy. I clearly mentioned if the kinetic energy is x, the potential energy will be minus 2x, the total energy will be minus x. I ask you to be very careful when you're writing the potential energy, kinetic energy, and the total energy of a satellite. These things are really useful in the further topics that we are going to discuss. So just make sure you clearly get these values. If we clearly remember the values, let me write them also. This is gmm by 2r naught. This is minus gmm by r naught. This is minus gmm by 2r naught. So even in the graphs, like where were the graphs? I discussed the graphs also. Yeah, something like this. The graphs is really clear, right? Yeah. So the graphs look like that. So I've discussed all these things: kinetic energy, potential energy, and what else? Yeah. In the end of the class, I discussed about the geostationary satellite. In the end, I talked about geostationary satellite, where the geostationary satellite has a time period the angular velocity. We can say both the time period and angular velocity exactly equal to Earth's angular velocity. So to Earth's surface, or someone who's standing on Earth's surface, it looks stationary. So they call it as a geostationary satellite. Okay. So the time period of these two things are equal, and I ask you to equate the time period like t square equals to 4 pi square gm by r naught cube. In the place of time period, I asked you to put 24 hours, which is nothing but 24 into 3600 seconds. You put that and you find the r naught value. It comes around, the radius comes around 42,000 kilometers, I guess, somewhere near 42,000 kilometers. That is the distance from the center. And I will also reminded that height, like we can talk about that in terms of height, which is around 36 till nearly 36,000 kilometers. People just randomly use these numbers. Okay. When it comes to geostationary and yeah, geostationary satellites itself, there are other satellites like called as geosynchronous. Okay. Don't worry about them. Geosynchronous satellite is just a satellite which goes with the same angular velocity as Earth. Like, let me show it. Geostationary satellites, they only go around Earth's equator. Please remember this point. They only go around Earth's equator because to us, they should look like they are stationary. You cannot make a satellite go around here, right? Because the gravity is acting in this direction. It won't go in an orbit like that. It has to go around the equator. Yes, definitely a satellite can go like this for sure, because the force, gravitation force is towards the center and it is acting as a centripetal force. So satellite can go like this, but it won't be geostationary anymore because to me it looks like it will be here and after some time it is going down here, but I'm still here. Like if I go around, it'll come around. Let us say both the angular velocities are still equal. It is the angular velocity of the Earth and the angular velocity of the satellite is still equal. But in this case, from here, it looks like it is in the north direction for me, and after some time, after a half of a day, it looks like it is in the south direction. So it's not exactly stationary. So these things are called as geosynchronous. It's as if they are synchronous with the Earth's angular velocity. That's all. But compared to us, they look like they might be moving. But the satellites which are geostationary, they exactly are above equator all the time. This is a point that you need to note. Okay, and there is no way that you can have a satellite in this orbit. There's no chance. The satellite's orbit center and Earth center must always coincide. It is a very important thing. The centers clearly coincide. You see this? So that is an important point I need you to remember. So that is about geostationary satellites. Now, coming to the point of weightlessness, like if you are in a satellite, why are you feeling weightless? Why are you feeling weightless? Now, this is an expression that you might have all actually experienced when it comes to a giant wheels. I'm not sure how many people of you actually went in a giant wheel, or you have might have some other name for it. If you have some other name for it, I can't really help it. So these kind of wheels you have in circuses, right? So in these wheels, whenever we are going around in this vertical circular motion, by the whenever when we are at the topmost point, like when let's just compare all the points, okay? When we are at the topmost point, when I'm here, gravity is acting here, and there is some mr omega square, and obviously normal force from where I'm sitting. So normal force is definitely there. So whenever they like if I'm standing on the ground, let's compare this case with standing on a ground. If I'm standing on the ground, mg is acting, normal force is acting. So mg equals to normal force. This is the basic law. But in this case, mg mg equals to mr square omega plus normal force. This value is fixed, mg is fixed. So if only this is more, the normal force is getting lesser. So when you are in a giant wheel at the topmost point, please try to remember the point. In a giant wheel, when you're going to the topmost point, you definitely feel a little less weighted, but mg is still acting the same way. There is no such thing as the weightlessness. It's not really the weightlessness that you're feeling. It is just that you're feeling the normal force which is lesser. That's all. The normal force that you're feeling is lesser. The normal force that you're feeling on the ground compared to in a giant wheel when you're at the topmost point is lesser. The gravity that is acting on you is still the same thing. The value of gravity is still the same thing. Please remember this point. So the word that they use all the time, that they use simply to say weightlessness, you feel weightless when you're going accelerating downward, when you're in a lift. It's not exactly weightlessness, because the weight is acting the same way, mg is acting the same way. There is no change in mg. It is just the normal force that you're feeling is a little lesser compared to when you're on the ground. Okay. Of course, obviously, like when you're at the bottommost point, normal force will be more, because mg mr omega square acts downwards now, and the normal force n1, let us call it as. So n1 equals to this time mg plus mr omega square. This time you will feel heavy weighted, like you feel heavy. It's not because mg has increased, mg is the same value. It is just mr omega square is added here, mr omega square is less subtracted here. That is the only difference. Yes, please remember, when you're in a giant wheel, you don't feel weightless, or you don't, I mean, like you actually do feel weightless. That is because the normal force is increasing and decreasing. It is that effect that is making you feel weightless. Okay. Yeah. So it is a similar effect when it comes to a satellite. People or astronauts who are inside a satellite, I've already told this, discussed this in the video that I've just talked about on gravity. There is gravity acting on them, but not the gravity that is acting on the earth's surface. There will be some g effective, that's all. I already mentioned this thing. Just because you are at a height, okay, it got zoomed again. Just because you are at a height doesn't mean you are feeling weightless. Important point, the gravity is never zero. You can go to or like some thousands and thousands, like let us just take 1 lakh kilometers away from Earth. Did I put an extra zero? Yeah, I did put an extra zero. 10 lakh kilometers away from Earth. you will still feel Earth's gravity. There are a lot of people use this word escaping the Earth's gravity. There is no such thing as escaping the Earth's gravity. Please try to remember this point, because no matter how far you go, the gravity is always acting on you. If I leave you taking somewhere into some point and leave you there, you will come back crashing onto Earth. Okay, yeah, there is a thing called escape velocity. I will talk about it right after this thing. But no matter how far I go, the gravity is still acting on you, except it's not this mg, some g effective, some other value, because you are at a distance from the Earth's surface. We know that g value varies, but there is still gravity. So just like that, for the people who are in the satellite, they definitely feel the weight of the bodies, the weight of the astronauts is still there. It is just that because of this circular motion, they also feel some mr omega square, which is a centrifugal force. And the best part is they two actually balance each other. So mg effective equals to mr omega square plus, let us just say, normal force. But these two balance each other completely. That makes the normal force 0. So the astronauts who are inside a satellite, aren't they actually having weight? They are having weight because Earth is, let me change the color. In the satellite, they are experiencing Earth's gravity for sure. Mg is acting on them. Just like on every part of their body, Mg is acting. But basically mr omega square is also acting. uh, I don't know where it went. Did I switch the page to something? Yeah, I switched the page. I'm sorry about it. So mr omega square is also acting. That is causing the normal force to be 0, and that is the reason why you're feeling weightless inside a satellite. Please remember this point. Now, the astronauts are not floating. You cannot say the gravity here is 0. If somebody says the gravity here is 0, go and slap them. It's fine. Okay, it's not the gravity is 0. People actually use a word apparent gravity. The apparent gravity is 0. You can say that. There is no such thing as zero gravity space. Okay, it is apparent 0 gravity. You can call it as an apparent 0 gravity, and that value is 0, and you can always count on this thing. Apparent gravity is 0 because the normal force is clearly appearing as 0. So it looks as if your all the forces acting on you is 0, so you're just floating. Okay, but is the gravity still acting? Strictly speaking, the gravity is still acting on you. Okay, so please remember that point, the weightlessness thing of a of a astronaut who's in the space. Okay, like I mentioned yesterday, even flights, like in a flight, even in a flight, if the flight is going with the orbital velocity in its height, which is 12 km, as far as I remember from yesterday's, if it is going with the orbital velocity at the speed, we'll all be feeling weightlessness, because the normal force will be 0. And this is what they basically use. Not really, they don't really go at these speeds. You know, the zero gravity training spaces, like they take you into some space and they test you in zero gravity. They don't really test you in zero gravity. One, that planes that they're traveling at some high speeds for sure. And also, it's not just that speed, they also descent. They started descent. Because of this descent, you will feel some pseudo force, and because of the pseudo force, mg is acting on this, and there will be some pseudo force. I can't really call it exactly mr omega square, because they're not exactly going in circular motion. You might have seen this thing in a lot of experimental videos. They took Stephen Hawking also into this free gravity space. It's not exactly free gravity space. Okay, they take you in a flight which can really travel at high speeds, and not just high speeds, they actually take you there and start a descent. Because this is starting up descent, you might have experienced this thing in the flights, in your normal flights also. If you have experienced this thing in your normal flights, when they lose the push thrust, the flights kind of when they have the turbulence, the flights kind of go down suddenly. When they're suddenly going down, you'll clearly feel this weightlessness in a flight, in a normal flight also, but it's not that much. Since these flights that I'm talking about, the gravity free flights or whatever it is, they actually like take you there to make you feel it, the weightlessness. So they take you with high speeds, and it's not really that high. It's the important thing is they actually started descent, sudden descent. Because of the sudden descent, sudden coming down, you will feel some pseudo force, and because of the pseudo force inside that space, everyone will start feeling like the normal force is zero. They'll all start floating into the space inside this flight. So no, they are not. They're not going in a gravity-free space. So let me remind you. Let me clear that out for you. So that is the reason why astronauts feel weightless. But please try to understand the original meaning of weightlessness. It is always, you can actually put an apparent right here, and everything sounds quite reasonable now. Apparent weightlessness. It is apparent that the body, we are feeling weightless, but in reality, no, we are not feeling any weightlessness. I hope you get that. Okay. So right after that, after the idea of weightlessness, if you have any doubts, you can text me or just drop the comments. I don't think you can drop the comments since it's a private video right now. Um, let's talk about the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is escape velocity or escape speed. You can really call it anything. Escape speed. Now, I just said no matter how far I go from Earth's surface, there is always gravity acting on me. No matter how far I'm going, there is always gravity on me. Now, what do I mean when I say escaping from the gravity? What exactly do I mean? Okay, let us use yesterday's comparison of the funnel again to make it a little more, reasonable. Okay, uh, I'm drawing that funnel thingy. I'm not really sure what you call this as, but let's just call this as a funnel. Okay. And guys, it never goes flat. There's always some slope. Okay. Since I don't have an infinite space here, I'm only drawing up to this level, but it never goes flat. It always is at least slightly bending. There is a little bend all the time. So this is actually like we are using this idea to understand the idea of gravity. So since it is not flat, no matter how far I put a body, like I can take a body no matter how far, because of the slope, it always comes down and falls in it. So that is an important thing. And we also compared this thing with the orbitals yesterday. This is a stable level of orbit. If it has to go around, yet the orbital speed must be like higher. It needs to have higher orbital speed. If it's going around like this, it needs much higher velocity. And even compared the this thing, right? Oh, wait a second. Yeah, nothing happened. So even compare the elliptical orbits, which I'll discuss today or tomorrow. I'll see according to the time. Even the elliptical orbits are also stable. We've already talked about this thing, but you can always use this for a comparison. Okay, like whenever you're finding it difficult to understand the orbits and orbital velocities, you can always use this. So like I mentioned yesterday, when I'm using an orbit, when a body is in an orbit, if I increase the velocity, if I decrease the velocity, what happens? Nothing will happen. If I increase the velocity, it might enter into an elliptical orbit, that's all. If I decrease the velocity, it might enter into an elliptical orbit or some other direction. It will simply enter into an elliptical orbit. But what we are talking about right now is an escape velocity. An escape velocity. So what happens? Let us look at this. I give a body, like a body is somewhere around here. I give it some high velocity. It goes to some point, it comes down. No matter how much of velocity it's giving, it is going and it's coming back. That is exactly is happening on Earth also. Like in the yesterday's discussion that we just did, uh, even in the case of Earth, Even in the case of Earth, throw a body vertically upwards, it goes and straight comes back. I throw it at an angle, it goes and hits here. I throw it at some other angle, it goes and hits here. I throw it with some high velocity, it might go all the way, it might hit it somewhere else. But there comes a specific point where I throw it. What color do you want me to use? Let us use some specific strange color for this. Uh, yeah, yellow. If I use it and throw it with a specific velocity, you know what happens? It never truly comes back. It just goes. I mean, like, yeah, it just goes and keeps going. You getting my point? Just like a funnel. Like, I can throw it with a velocity, it will come back. I can keep throwing it velocity with a comeback. I can keep throwing it with some velocity, it will come back. But there comes a point, beyond that point, if I throw it, it'll just keep going. And that specific velocity is called as VE, which is called as the escape velocity, a velocity with which I throw a body. Now, in which direction we will talk about it, but with which velocity if I throw a body, and considering, okay, wait a second, with a specific velocity you're throwing a body, it is not really coming back, considering there is no air friction and there are no other planets. This is also important. Okay, the reason why I'm telling you this is, let me just give you a heads up here, because we all know, like in your schools, you all might have known that the velocity, escape velocity is 11.2 kilometers per second, and they say rockets actually leave with this velocity, which is wrong. Rockets don't just leave with this velocity, they constantly accelerate it. The kind of idea that we're talking about, the escape velocity, is a velocity with which a body, you just throw it once and you don't have to constantly push it again and again. You're throwing it once, and with this velocity, if you throw it 11.2 kilometer per second, it will never come back. And this is also taking consideration that there is no air friction and there are no other objects at all. No air friction and there is no other object at all. Let me tell you something. For a body to escape, you need 11.2 kilometer per second, right? But if you have Earth and if you have Moon, you don't really need 11.2 kilometers. You can actually throw less than 11.2 kilometers and it'll actually go on to Moon, or it'll go into some other space because of Moon's gravity. So this value that we're just talking about, the 11.2 kilometer per second value, is considered with no air friction and no other bodies. This is an important, it's not an important thing. I'm sorry. It's not an important thing. This is a assumption people make and find this velocity. Okay. So the value that you've been learning in your whole life is kind of silly. 11.2 kilometers per second is nothing. You don't really lose it anywhere in the real life. Okay. This is just a number that when you take these kind of assumptions and calculate it, is the number that you get. That's all. How do we do it? Let's do it. Okay, we can find a way how to find this value for sure. So what we're talking about, escape velocity, right? Escape velocity is when you throw a body and it should move on, it shouldn't ever come back. That is exactly what we're trying to do. I'm going to throw a body in any random direction. I will come back to the direction later, but in any random direction, and it should never come back, which means it should just head on and it should go to infinity. It should go to infinity. That is the point. At infinity, it can be at rest. At infinity, it can be at rest. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a energy conservation of energy. We can use conservation of energy because there is no friction, there is nothing else. So, I'm using the conservation of energy. At infinity, the kinetic energy of the body is zero, or you can just say more than zero. The potential energy we already defined long ago is zero. So this is the limiting condition. At infinity, the energy of the body must be zero. So at the point of projection also, the energy of the body must be zero. How do we write it? The kinetic energy is already half mv naught square. But what is the potential energy? Remember, minus gmm by capital R only, because the distance between the capital M and the small m is R actually in this case. When it is on the surface, when the body is on the surface itself, the distance between the body and the planet is basically R. So this is the energy on the surface and this is the energy on the infinity. I can equate these two and find the value. Let me write it. On the surface, there is kinetic energy, half mv naught square, not p naught. Let's not write v naught, okay? V naught is orbital. I'm sorry if I confused you there. Let us write it as VE, where VE is called as escape velocity. This is also VE. Did I write anywhere else as V or not? No. VE is the escape velocity. Half mEV minus GMM by R, okay, equals to kinetic energy and potential energy at the infinity. This is the, in the worst case, this is zero. In the worst case, this is already zero. So if I solve this equation for this, half mv square minus gmm by r. The reason why we are conserving the energy, again, I'm mentioning this. There is no air friction and there are no other planets. So there is only one potential energy and there is only one kinetic energy, and we are doing all the whole energy conservation because taking that what do you say? That assumption, okay, equals to 0. And when I solve it, v square half mb square equals to gmm by r. Small m is cancelled. V is coming as root over 2 gm by r. And in this, I put the value of gravitational constant, Earth's mass, which is 6 into 10 to the power of 24 kgs. Earth's radius is 6,400 kilometers. So this meters. I put these values. I am getting a value which is close to 11.2 kilometer per second. So this is just a mathematical expression, guys. This is just a mathematical expression, 11.2 kilometers, but it doesn't really mean anything in the real life because there is air friction and there are other planets. So people simply say from a planet, if a body is to be projected in all the ideal conditions, it needs at least 11.2 kilometer per second for it to never come back. Now, important point, is the direction important? Not at all. Not at all important, because we just took some random direction and we solved it and we got the value anyway. And practically looking at it practically also, I can clearly say that no matter in which direction I project it, it just changes the direction where it goes. That's all. Like if the body is projected like this, it'll simply go and escape in this direction. If the body is projected in this direction, the body will simply go like this and escape. If it is projected like this, the body will simply go in this direction and escape. But in every situation, it will escape, it will go. But like, even though when it is right before infinity, that's a stupid thing to say, right before infinity, but even though it is like a far point, Earth's gravity is still pulling it, but it still has some velocity. That is why it is still going away. Okay, so that velocity, 11.2 kilometer per second for Earth, is escape speed and doesn't really depend on which direction you project it. Okay, what we did is simply we took the total energy here, we took the total energy at infinity, we equated these two values and we got the answer. It is that simple, guys. You get it? So once the escape velocity part is done, if you have any doubts, again, you can ask me about the escape velocity, the whole idea of escape velocity. Again, this is just a number, doesn't really have anything to say in the real life. Obviously, like we can have an escape velocity from a satellite itself. Already a satellite is going with some velocity v naught, and from this, with what speed should you project a body so that it escapes the gravity? There are questions like that. Okay, all you need to do is take the energy of the body that is to be projected. Total energy of the body must be equal to 0. When we do the problem, I will definitely explain. The final energy of the body will be 0. So like I have to equate these two. Total energy here, which is the kinetic energy, potential energy minus gmm by r. I write the summation equated to 0 and I'll find the escape velocity even from a satellite also. We can do that. We will do that in the problems when we come across. Okay, not right now. So this is the idea of escape velocity, guys. Like I mentioned, just remember all the points that I just talked about, but you don't really get all the questions. I don't think so. If only I'm throwing a body, considering the air friction, the speed must be more than that. Let us take moon also in this case. I don't need 11.2 km per second. I can throw it with a lesser velocity. It can actually get onto moon. You can actually throw it onto the moon also. Speaking of which, there is a question like this. There is a question where, with what velocity should you project a body so that it reaches onto moon? There is a question like this somewhere. To solve this question, how would you approach? This is how you approach. There must be some null point in between Earth and Moon. There must be some null point. We all must agree that. Beyond that null point, gravity is in this direction. Sorry, gravitational field is in this direction. Before that point, gravitational field is towards Earth. So the body that you just project, it simply has to reach this null point. Once it reaches the null point, beyond that point, moon will take care of it. Moon will pull it. So all you need to do is take this as case point 1, take this as point 2, and conserve the energy between this point and this point. The effort that you should be putting is make the body just to reach the null point. That's all. You don't really have to push it all the way to moon. All you need to do is push it up to the null point. It will happily go to the moon. Okay. So that is one important question that comes along when we solve some problems about gravity. So when you come across this problem, make sure you ask me or you try it, and if you don't get it, you can ask me. Okay. So that is the idea about escape velocity, guys. Now there is more obviously about escape velocities, but in your main standard, this is more than enough. But in your advanced level, definitely there are more problems. But when we come across, when you solve and when you come across these kind of problems, I will definitely talk about it. The next thing that I like to talk about is the elliptical orbits. I won't talk about elliptical orbits today. I will talk about them tomorrow, but I will talk about ellipse. I will talk about the basic properties of ellipse. Okay. An ellipse is like a squished circle. Do you all know x square plus y square equals to a square is the equation for a circle? Is an equation for circle. The equation of an ellipse goes like x square by a square plus y square by b square equals to 1. Where a and b are, this value is a and this value is b. They have some names for it. Okay. So the whole width, it's as if this whole thing is 2a. The whole height, it's 2b. They call this as major axis. Remember these words, guys. This thing is called as major axis, and this thing is called as minor axis. If you're talking about just a, it is semi major axis, and this thing is semi minor axis. Semi major axis and semi minor axis. This is the first basic property. In mathematics, they will clearly teach a lot more about ellipse, because this is a stupid way to teach ellipse. Okay, this is such a stupid way to teach ellipse, but I'm just doing it anyway. So these are the names for it. But if you go deeper, like when we talk about the properties of an ellipse, there are 2 points called as foci, F1 and F2. Now, what's the importance of these foci? The foci has such an important property, which can be said, like take any random point P, you try to join them. So you have F1P, F2P, F1P plus F2P. Take another random point Q, which is this time F1Q plus QF2 or F2Q. I say these two values are equal. This length and this length are equal. That is the important idea about an ellipse. So the best way to draw an ellipse, do you know? Take two nails into a wall, tie around a rope. Now try to make this rope straight and put a pen here in this point and try to make it go around. You'll exactly get an ellipse. Okay, since the length of the string is being maintained constant, the length of the string is being maintained constant, and this shape what you get is basically an ellipse. Okay, so from this point they actually do a lot of things. Okay, from the statement that we just made, they will do these kind of things. F1, F2. What they do is they will get a relation between A and B. You can get a relation between A and B. I want you people to do it. Okay, I want a relation between A and B where this whole length is A. This length is called as EA, where E is called as the eccentricity of the ellipse. Yeah, there are too many terms already, but once you get a hold of it, you'll clearly understand. The ratio of this full length to the focus to this point is called as the eccentricity of an ellipse. So using that idea of eccentricity, they do this thing. Like, let me show it to you. So this length, the red length, this length and this length, this is EA and this is EA. And since this is B, you can use trigonometry and write the length of this string, right? We all can do that. Now this time they take the same ellipse, and take this point right here, which is this length plus this length, this length plus this length. Now this whole length must be equals to this whole length, because we just agreed no matter which point I take, no matter this point or this point, I mean like this point or this point, the length of the string, the length that is joining from the focus points R must be equal. So use the same idea, because uh, if you clearly see, this length is nothing but this length. So I'm removing this part and putting it there. So let me just delete this part and putting it, okay, I'm sorry. Putting it there. So this whole length that we're talking about is basically 2A. So this is 2A. This must also be 2A. When you equate that, you will get a relation between E, A, and B. Semi-minor axis, semi-major axis, semi-minor axis, and eccentricity of the ellipse. This property is so important. If I just do it, you will forget it. You will just leave it that way. I'm asking you to do it. Okay, if I do it and just leave it, you won't really care about it. So please pay attention to that. What you need to do is, this length is called as A, this length is called as EA. So I'm drawing again. Try to use this length and try to write this length, F1, F2. Try to use those two, like try to write those two lengths using A, B, and try to equate them. You will get a relation between A, B, and E. Try to do that and text me the answer or comment the answer or whatever. Okay, once you do this, you will understand some things about ellipse. I will give you more insight into ellipse tomorrow, and we will talk about the elliptical orbits tomorrow itself. Trust me, elliptical orbits are really important for advanced exam. In the mains exam, the formulas are really simple. It's really easy. I will show them to you tomorrow, but for an advanced exam, the formulas are really important. I mean, like the ideas are really important about elliptical orbits. they can give you a very complex problem that is linked to gravity in an elliptical orbit. So you be careful about that. All right. So that's it for today, guys. I just want to end the session by this point. I'm sorry, this is still just a recording. You might have some doubts, but again, you post your doubts or text me your doubts, and I will definitely clear them. And right before tomorrow's class, you can do that, and I will clear the doubts of today in tomorrow's session itself. All right. So thanks so much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye bye. Thanks so much.